Gone are the days when the only source of income for farmers was selling their crops. Here comes the era of innovation. Nowadays, farmers are earning more thanks to this Boston-based startup, Indigo Ag, which is helping farmers to reduce carbon emissions and get paid for that. Sounds surprising? Stay tuned to find out how farmers are earning profits through this startup. First things first, how the startup works. Indigo Ag hit gold when they came up with the idea to help farmers work with climate-friendly strategies to capture carbon emissions. The firm profits by selling carbon credits to companies. Farmers get 75% of that profit, and Indigo gets to keep the remaining 25%. With the help of Climate Action Reserve, an organization that overlooks the North American carbon market, they find out how many carbon credits each farm would produce and then calculate the amount of money the farmers would get and pay them that amount in advance. Each metric ton of carbon avoided from the atmosphere generates one carbon credit. The amount differs for each farm, so don't get jealous if the farmer in your neighborhood is earning more. The business model is simple. You do a good deed for the environment, and you get paid for that. A win-win solution, right? Before you get confused with carbon credits, let's break them down for you. You can call it a permit to release carbon dioxide. Indigo Ag has a contract to sell carbon credits to buyers like JP Morgan Chase, The North Face, Shopify, and Barclays. So far, Indigo Ag's producing 20,000 tons of credits. Let's hear it from their CEO and Chief Strategy Officer. Indigo Ag CEO, Rong Havzipian, cares about the environment and the farmers, as he says that they focus on bringing revenue streams to farmers in their journey to sustainability. The company encourages farmers to plant cover crops and reduce tillage. Let's revise a bit of high school for you. Cover crops add organic matter to the soil and are grown to protect the soil against soil erosion, pests, and diseases. Tillage is the preparation of land before growing crops on it. So, with these two basic steps, soil health, water quality, and biodiversity can be improved. Not only that, but this also makes crops resilient to global warming. Chief Strategy Officer Chris Hatbart said that they could get every farmer on Earth to change their behavior if they incentivize it correctly. He believes Indigo Ag has the infrastructure and the equipment, and they're already dispersed across the globe to make that happen immediately, and that'll lead to a measurable change in our atmosphere. Also, he's a believer that carbon credits are part of the movement to reduce the overall pressure on the atmosphere. Here's how it started versus how it's going. Indigo Ag started with 175 farmers, but now has more than 2,000. It has $1.2 billion in funding so far, and is backed by Flagship Pioneering, Alaska Permanent Fund, Investment Corporation of Dubai, and Bailey Gifford. Now it's time to hear it from one of the company's first clients. Indiana family farmer Lance Unger made about $52,000 in his first year with Indigo Ag, and he expects to make more as carbon credit prices rise due to higher demand. His strategy is simple. He's not making any more land and is trying to produce off the same land. He's also changed the way he tills his soil and also has a plan to grow cover crops so that the residues break down and get released down as nutrients faster. So he just helps the environment and gets paid for it in return. Unger likes to call it an extra benefit. So why are companies agreeing to invest money in the environment? You know how in big movies, companies are shown to be run by evil megaminds who couldn't care less what happens to the environment, but they dump their waste wherever they want? Well, people believe in that representation, and companies are facing pressure to show their love for the climate. Carbon credits come into the picture at this point. So the next time any journalist asks them about their carbon emissions, they can hide behind the shield of carbon credits. It doesn't mean that only environmental offenders are investing in carbon credits. It also works the other way. Americans love it if you tell them that their money is going to benefit society in any way. The American urge to fix everything comes in handy here. Who said that it was going to be easy? What Indigo Ag has to keep in mind is the accuracy of estimates for soil-based carbon removals because it's still a black box. Also, the process of taking meter-long soil cores on hundreds or thousands of acres is quite tiring. Researchers are still working on other ways to evaluate soil carbon content, but ground sampling still appears a must to them. Permanence is another issue. Companies buy credits because they're promised that the carbon will be stored for decades, so they can produce their carbon, but agricultural plans are made every year. Look at it this way. If you decide to do no-till for a year, but the next year you change your mind and carbon dioxide gets released again, the whole exercise becomes useless. Indigo Ag tackles this problem this way. They pool carbon credits and hold back a portion of them so that they can stand future practice reversals. Then comes the problem of convincing the farmers. Chris Leahy is working with Indigo Ag and is using the no-till practice on his 4,800 acres to generate carbon credits. He also had been growing cover crops, but it's costing him $40 an acre, which is more than the profit he's making. You do the math. So after 3 years of it, he's not sure whether he should continue or not. Mr. Leahy believes that their margins are already tight, and he doesn't think the amount of income right now is enough to incentivize skies to change the way they've been farming for decades. Harbauer believes that change is tough, but he thinks that they can make it happen by financing correctly with the right money and the carbon credits. To solve this problem, Indigo Ag offers its farmers the shortest contracts of any carbon program. Most contracts are about 20 years, so Indigo offers 5-year contracts. Well, you know people and their issues with long-term commitments. So, should farmers like Chris Leahy stop this practice? The answer is that the carbon marketplace continues to grow. Companies around the world are continuing to make carbon reduction pledges, so carbon credits will become a common way to meet those pledges. According to Chris Harbauer, it's going to become a purely economic concept in the coming years. Even the Biden administration is seeking help from agriculture to help offset the country's emissions. So farmers, decide wisely. Let's see what's in other news. First up, we have Shell and its $40 million investment in carbon credits. So it looks like the future is definitely carbon credits. Earlier this week, Shell announced that it had invested in a Brazilian preservation-focused company, Carbonext. Turns out Carbonext is a hotshot company that runs preservation projects across more than 2 million hectares of the Amazon forest that are owned by companies seeking to capitalize on the carbon market. It then generates carbon credits that can be sold. Shell now has preferential access to the company's carbon market, although it won't get discounted prices. André Araujo, Shell Brazil's president, said that associating their company with Carbonext is an important step towards their goal of offsetting 120 million tons of CO2 a year by 2030. He also wants people to remember that the company also is backing a global initiative to hit net zero in emissions by 2050. Next up, we've come to beware the farmers of the scams in this carbon industry. Oil and gas giant BP found itself in controversy when everyone found out that they're paying shockingly less for carbon credits to Mexican villagers. Turns out that BP struck a bargain in the poorest areas of Mexico where the residents didn't know the value of the credits they've been selling. BP paid $2.5 million to start the CO2 Monetario program in 2019 and then purchased 1.5 million offsets for $4 each, which is even less than half of the market value price. WRI Mexico's forest director, who's overlooking the project, told Bloomberg Green that they understood it was a low price, but nothing was moving and there was no demand. So for the communities, this decision of going with $4 was better than nothing. BP has responded to the controversy and has reportedly agreed to increase the pay in some communities, although they didn't say how much they're increasing. Lastly, keep an eye out for reforms in the Emission Reduction Assurance Committee. A spokesperson for the Climate Change Minister, Chris Bowen, has confirmed that he'd accepted the resignation of 3 members of the Emissions Reduction Assurance Committee. The resigning members include the former mining executive, David Byers, and the economist, Dr. Brian Fisher, and the chief executive of the Cement Industry Federation, Margie Thompson. While the latter resigned because of family reasons, Byers and Fisher were asked to step down. We leave the thickening plot to you, but we'd like to tell you that Labor will now make substantial changes to the committee after overseeing the departure of 3 members appointed by the coalition. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think about the Indigo Ag and its carbon credit strategy? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos like this. See you at the next one.